Realtree's Midwest Whitetail is brought to you by Hoyt, Heumann Tree Saws, Lone Wolf Tree Stands, Nikon, Ozonics, Redneck Blinds, RTP Outdoors, Spot Hog Releases, Wasp Archery, and Realtree.
Well, we finally had a slow day. Had some rain the last couple days, so we're able to get out of the tractor and catch up on a blog. We got a few antlers we've found since we last talked about it, or last did a blog. You remember the Page's Muzzbuck? It's a buck we seen in October. Walked down the gauntlet when Josh was filming me one day mid-October. We found this particular antler down in the crab's food plot where I killed that buck. Look at that sweeping beam he's got. He's got about a 25-inch beam on him, so that's going to be a nice deer next year. Here's what's left of the other side. He kept breaking off a little more. Every time I'd get a picture of him, he'd have a little less antler. I was surprised to find that. It was laying in the corn stalks. There's that buck. You remember the grandpa buck? So here's his antler from last year. And the landowner found this one would be from the 2018 season. They found that in March this year. Basically about the same size. Pretty similar. This is unique on the bottom. Looking on the base here, he's got a little iceberg formation there that came out of the pedicle. That's unique. I haven't seen that before on one. I've got some that'll have a chunk from the pedicle on it, but not like that. Overall, I'd say he scores probably about the same. He's a little shorter on that G3, but longer on the brow. Mass pretty similar. So I expect him to be about the same size next year. Then we got the Super Freak buck. Remember, this is the one I found this spring that had shed one side, and we'd found that antler, which is right here, and then we found him laying dead. A couple interesting things. If you look right here, look how close he is to shed, and you can see a distinct line between the skull and the antler right there. So he was within, I would say, a day or two of that antler probably falling off. I bet you could knock that off there actually. That's interesting. But another thing I wanted to look at, when I found this shed, you look at how much bone is below the burr. And I found them like that in years past, and I always wondered if they would grow a normal antler the next year, you know, with that much pedicle still attached, or sometimes they just have a piece of it attached. So I kind of wanted to look at that once this was turned into a European mount. And it's very interesting. Basically, there is no pedicle. It's just flat skull. I've got one here to look at what it should look like. It should be a little raised where that pedicle's at. And this one's just right flat to the skull, even actually kind of eroded into it a little bit. There's a hole right here. And so I don't know if that would have grown normal next year or not. That's interesting. I really don't know the answer on that, but you know, and it's quite a bit lower than the other side even. So my thought is he probably would have grown a normal antler, but I don't know that that's the case. Hard to say. But this is what he looked like. That antler on there. It was a heck of a nice deer. That's a shame. I'm still crying about it, as you can tell. And the other thing I wanted to go over was another big buck profile. So last time we did one, we did the Jaw Dropper 2 buck, which is right there just left of the chimney. And we're going to stay right there on the 194. We just call him the 194 buck. And you've got to go way back in time on that hunt. It goes all the way back to 2005. So that year started out, we started hunting in October, and started out just slow. We couldn't find any mature bucks. We were having a lot of trouble getting on anything good. And so this piece of property was only 5.5 acres, and we just decided, hey, let's just go do something different, try and make our own luck, because we're not seeing anything where we're hunting now anyway. And so we went over one day, and there was 2 cedar trees about 10 yards apart. And we just went over and we trimmed those 2 out, put up 2 stands, and I stacked a windrow from all those branches. We made a windrow to kind of keep them up right where they went, right underneath my stand basically, so they couldn't cross down the hill farther. And we went in there. It was November 11th. We went in there and it was an ice cold morning in the low teens. Just a beautiful morning. We got in there before light, and we hadn't been there probably 20 minutes. Then all of a sudden I can hear a buck grunting from the next ravine over. You can tell he's chasing a doe, just one grunt after another, and it keeps getting closer and closer. And now you got to remember, so I'm set up about 10 yards from where my brother's filming. So this doe pops out and this gigantic buck comes out of the timber. And he can see this buck, and I have no idea what's over there. There's a screen of cedar trees in front of me. So I hear this grunting getting closer and closer, and he's filming this gigantic deer, and he's trying to tell me, shoot her. You can hear it on the film if you listen to it. I didn't hear him, and of course I can't see anything. So a couple minutes into this, I can hear it getting closer. The doe pops out through those cedars and walks right underneath my tree. And at that point I'm like, well, whatever's following her, I'm going to see it, you know. So I get ready, and all of a sudden this buck pops through those cedar trees, and that's the first glimpse I got of him. And I was like, oh my word, that is a giant, you know. So all of a sudden I'm instantly nervous, and I'll show you what happens. We'll watch that and we'll be right back. So can you believe that? He comes out, he pops out right there, follows the same trail as the doe, walks right underneath me, and mind you, I'm only like 8 feet off the ground. So I mean, if I had a spear, I could have got this deer. Walks underneath me, and I know my brother can't see him at that point, so I let him walk past the tree, and he just clears the cedar tree, and I shoot him and hit him just perfect. Runs down the hill 50 yards and falls over. Never had to leave the 5.5 acres. So that was one of those where, you know, you went through the extra effort, just tried something, nothing else was working, just tried something different, and it paid off. Ended up being a hunt of a lifetime, and still one of my best bucks ever. Now let's head out, and we're going to do a little bit of shooting, and we've got to seed some waterways, so let's go do that. Oh, you're filming. Sorry about that, everyone. So we still got trophy clover in here. So we need to go put this down. Then we will come back and seed our crossings, which we have some seed right there. Let's go do that, everyone. Everyone, not just me. Actually, it's still bugging me. It's not my back though. It's like right there. It's right there. How many weirdos does it take to fill up a bag with seed? At least 2, it appears.
I can't count that high.
So we're just seeding these crossings down just for erosion control. Putting her down pretty heavy because broadcasting it like that, a lot of it will get washed away or won't germinate or whatever. Well, here's the clover field, or supposed to be clover, and I do see some in it, but it's got a major grass problem. If we don't get this grass killed off, it's going to choke this clover out, I think. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today. We've got to go get the sprayer in the next couple of days and get this sprayed, but check back here in about 10 days, maybe 2 weeks, and we'll put another blog up.